I used to work with troubled adolescent boys, and one of the things that I did with them was take them on wilderness backpacking trips. So we'd go off, and there'd be 12 boys and 4 adults, and for 6 to 7 days, we'd go off into the woods, and it was a chance for them to do things differently, to to have a new experience. We were a little community, if you will, of 16 people. And so you learn to appreciate everybody's gifts and talents in that kind of context. One of the things we would do with them was at the beginning of these trips, sometimes they would take on a trail name, which was basically the boys were invited to select some item in nature that had qualities or characteristics that they wanted to aspire to. And so they would choose kind of this name from nature. And usually, because these are adolescent boys, they're choosing names like bear and tiger and lion and eagle, right? And so then for the rest of the trip, somebody you'd call out bear, right? And that would be that person's name. And it would have to do with strength, and it would have to do with courage, and it would have to do, with these things that the boys were aspiring to. There's one boy along one trip who just had a hard time getting things together. He had a hard time being motivated. He was kind of a putz. He wasn't very successful in the things he did. He had low self-esteem, and as we're going to, and this was not a kid who was going to aspire to eagle or lion. This is a kid, he was going to have a different kind of name. And so when it came around, and everybody says, "Hey, Paul, what name do you want to be called?" He said, "Mosquito." And at that time, we were plagued by mosquitoes, right? I mean, they were the bane of the kids' existence, and everybody was swatting them, and they were the source of great frustration, and nobody likes mosquitoes. And so everybody is like, "Well, Paul, why do you want to be called Mosquito?" He says, "Because they're persistent, and they don't give up, and I need to be like that." We need bears. We need lions. We need mosquitoes. We need mice and moles and beetles and salamanders and snakes, right? We need them all. That's part of Paul's lesson. And what I love about that story, it's this thing that the mosquito that we all love to hate was necessary for this boy's inspiration. So when Paul is talking about the body, we have this tendency, one of the challenges of living together in community is we want to separate ourselves from others. There's things we don't like about other people. There's things that those people do that we don't want to accept. They're different than we are. And so we say, "I'm not a part of them. I don't want to be part of them." And yet Paul's saying, "Look, you are all baptized into the Spirit of God. And by the Spirit of God, you've been given different gifts, and you've been created differently, and you are all one body." The eye can't say to the ear, "I have no need of you," and the ear can't say to the foot, "I have no need of you." Like, you need each other. It's a brilliant metaphor, right? It's a great metaphor. And like these boys, we have this tendency, it's like, "Oh, I get to be an eye. I get to be an ear. I get to be a foot. I get to be a hand." All these great parts of the body. Nobody ever says, "I want to be the armpit." Right? And yet, we couldn't survive without our armpits. Our body needs something to do heat regulation. We need a way of expelling toxins. We need, all these lymph nodes that are present in that part of the body. That is such an essential part of the body. And yet we treat it with such disgust. It stinks. Right? We judge it. We have contempt for it. And then we apply that, not just to our own bodies, but we apply it to other things. Like, I used to live in Indiana, and people would say of Gary, Indiana, that was the armpit of the Midwest. Right? And we do that geographically. I mean, I'm sure I could say, what is the armpit of British Columbia, and you could give me the name of a town. And yet that's somebody's home. That's where people live. That's where they love. That's where they raise families, and we call it the armpit. And we mean it with disgust and contempt. Why? Why would we do that? Why do we do that about our own, have that kind of disgust and contempt about our own bodies, something that's part of ourselves? The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you. Nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the members of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And those members of the body that we think less honorable, we clothe with greater honor. And our less respectable members are treated with greater respect. That's profound. We think it sounds good, right? But when push comes to shove, I'm not sure we're all on board. Think about the anus. Pay attention to what just happened for you when I said the word anus. Half of you are like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that word. Don't talk about that part of the body. Please don't talk about that part of the body. That makes me profoundly uncomfortable. Rectum. Right? You can live without an eye. You can live without your ears. You can live without your hands. You can live without your feet. You cannot live without your anus. You will die without your anus. That's how important it is. Ask anybody who's had colon cancer and has to have a colostomy, is it a colostomy bag? A colostomy bag. That's how important it is, right? Because if you don't have one, you will literally be filled, right, with your own excrement. You need an anus. But why do we feel such shame and disgust around it and contempt? And then we apply it to other people. Oh, he's a real asshole. Oops, excuse me, I didn't mean to say that. I was going to say a-hole, but I said it. Right? This is going live, right? Now it's all over the internet. Right? But we say that, and we say it with contempt. We say it with judgment. We say it with disgust. And we say that about a human being. Why do we do that? Right? Why do we do that? What's in us? What is it about us? Right? And part of it, the reason why we do it is because it's how we feel about ourselves. Right? We feel that we have a sense of shame and disgust and contempt for those things about us. You know, I was talking with somebody and she was talking about raising her kids and cleaning her baby's bottom and how she didn't feel a sense of disgust at that. And she was kind of surprised. Why don't I feel I didn't feel a sense of disgust of that with my baby, but why do I feel that with myself? Why is it so hard? If we can't do that with ourselves, how are we going to do it with other people? Right? Jesus, in today's gospel text, walks into the synagogue and he reads from the Torah. He sits down and he opens up the scroll of the Torah, and not the Torah, excuse me, but he opens up the scroll of Isaiah and he reads this quote: "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor." Good news to the poor. He sent me to proclaim release to the captives, release to those who are in prison, and recovery of sight to the blind. To let the oppressed go free and proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And then he sits down. And he says, I am here to do this. I am here to set the prisoner free. I am here to proclaim good news to those who are poor. And for those who are differently abled, who have to struggle, right, with a different reality than most of us experience, and have to overcome challenges that most of us don't have to overcome, who are perceived as having some deficiency and inadequacy because they can't see, or they can't walk, or they can't hear, or whatever. I've come to give them full life. right? And we can't celebrate that if we have these feelings of contempt and disgust and ambivalence. Jesus says, I've come to set the prisoner free. And we're like, you mean that a-hole? You're going to set that a-hole free? I've come to proclaim good news to the poor. You mean those dirty people on the east side that smell? Similar kinds of feelings, right? Similar feelings to how we feel about our own bodies. Why is that? Jesus says, I've come to set you free from that. I've come to set you free from contempt. I've come to set you free from judgment. I've come to set you free from disgust. Let me wash you. Let me cleanse you. For I love you, and you are mine, and so are they. Amen.